Hi everyone and welcome to the Spencer Lodge podcast in partnership with Najahi Events. More about them later. Okay, what do BMW, Allianz, Microsoft, Goldman Sachs and the International Royal Class all have in common? Well, at one point or another, Sebastian Huth has worked for all of them. And because of that, he has a front row seat to the best minds in business, finance and banking. Sebastian is my guest on the show today, a speaker, a blockchain entrepreneur and a crypto coach. Sebastian is co-founder and partner of the B.I.G blockchain initiative group based in Abu Dhabi, which helps set up blockchain and digital ledger technologies infrastructures in cities and countries around the world. As an early investor in Bitcoin, he has spoken to hundreds of people about the difference that blockchain and crypto will make to the world. He joins us on the show today to discuss ways blockchain technology is going to touch, change and improve the life of every human being on this earth, especially in the developing world. Without further ado, let's welcome Sebastian to the show. Cue the music. Sebastian, thank you for joining us on the show this evening. I appreciate you taking the time, and more importantly, my audience are going to appreciate talking about all things crypto, because to be honest with you, the world is changing, isn't it?
It is. Hello, everyone. It's turning into a crypto world.
It's been interesting seeing the development. You know, crypto's, I suppose, 10 years, 11 years old right now. I was just talking to someone earlier that said, I've been involved in crypto for the last 8 years, so nearly all of its life. And yet I'm sitting here and it's only just beginning. And tonight I want to talk to you a lot about crypto. I want to talk to you about NFTs and what the impact is of that. And a lot of people still have no idea what that is. Also about the tokenization of stuff and also why you've got involved in it, what you've done, how you're teaching people to understand it better. So maybe if you could do me a favor and just for the next 30 seconds, introduce yourself to everybody and tell them what you do.
All right, thank you. My name is Sebastian. I'm German, live in Germany. I travel a lot. In the last 25 years, I've lived and worked in over 65 countries. Sometimes I felt a bit like Forrest Gump, getting around, meeting and working with and for some of the most, some people would say the most prominent, important people on the planet, including some dozens of, head of states, whatever. But it doesn't matter. I got into crypto in early 2013, so it's about 9 years now. I bought my bitcoins at the rate of at the price of $66.99 US. I didn't really do much with this for the first 2 years. Then all of a sudden everything exploded, and people asked me, can you talk about it, because there was nobody there. And so I started talking to 10 people, then 20, then all of a sudden 50, 100, 500, and 1,000 people, and then from Germany, all over Europe, all over the world, everything went crazy. I was never looking for it. I just went with the flow, like Forrest Gump. And then, I just thought it was a great place to be. And I started giving talks and workshops all over the world, educating people about it, how to get in, because that's one of the things that's lacking, education. And about 3 years ago, I started thinking, okay, now it's the time to do more with it instead of just sitting and sitting on your crypto. So I started helping and setting up crypto infrastructures in different places in the UAE and in other parts of the world. And so, yeah, this is what I do.
So I met a guy called Meta Kovin recently. He was the guy that bought people's $69 million worth of NFT art in April of this year. And when I was talking to him on the show, he's a crypto billionaire. I said, how did you get into it? He said, I saw it, I was reading about it, and when I was talking to people about it, they were laughing, saying, that's never going to happen, that's never going to take on. And when I saw them laughing, I thought, there's got to be something in this. So take me back to the time that you first started to buy Bitcoin and how you got into it.
It was about 15 years ago. It must have been in 2005, 2006. It was, I come from a very, very normal working class background. Grew up in a small village. Father was a policeman, mother was a nurse. They're pensioners now, so I never really had any money really, and I never really cared. But then about 15 years ago, I don't know, out of the blue, as if somebody had switched something in my head, I all of a sudden started thinking about, okay, something is changing here in this world, and I don't want to be and I want to protect all the savings that I have because I knew something was kind of out of control. And then because of the fact that I had been working for some of the most prominent people, I started asking like, okay, what's really going on here? And they told me, no, you better get ready because something is coming. The financial system isn't really as good as you always might read it or not. So, I got into precious metals 2006, 2007. I remember very well. I went to the bank in Augsburg, Germany, and then I said, I want to buy some gold coins. And then the guy behind the counter, he looked very suspicious as me, like, why do you want to get gold? And I was like, oh, and he said, you're a collector? And I was like, yes, I'm a collector. But I didn't tell him the story that I was worried about the global financial system. And then about 2 years later, Lehman Brothers happened. And during that time, precious metals did very well, as I was hoping to, because people told me about it. And then in the aftermath of Lehman Brothers and everything, stock markets crashed, everything went down. Lots of banks went down and everything. And then after a few years, everything normalized again. But then out of those almost collapse of the financial system, Bitcoin emerged all of a sudden. And then the same people that talked about, get yourself ready with precious metals said, look, there's a new kid on the block and you might want to look into this. And then I was reading about it, and then, sometimes you're busy and sometimes not. And then I felt, I really need to do something now, because I had missed a lot of investment opportunities of my life since I wasn't really, interested. I never bought any shares of Amazon or Apple or whatever, so that was the first thing I did. And then I decided to buy my first Bitcoins. And it was such a drama, because there was no education. There was nobody telling you anything about it. I just registered with this German exchange, and there was so many new words I had no clue about. And I was just navigating through it and all of it, and I was really worried, because it was, you first had to send your money to somebody and then you would get your Bitcoins in return. And I was like, oh no, hopefully they get there, and then they did. And then I was really happy. So that was the time in 2012, 2013.
Did you have any friends or any associates that you knew at that time that were doing the same thing? Or were you really kind of on your own when you were getting involved in it?
I was completely on my own. There was nobody else there. When I started talking to people about Bitcoin, because there was no other cryptocurrency back then, they were very suspicious. Like 99.9% didn't even know about it, but the ones that did, everybody was like, oh yeah, keep on talking, and over the years, and I really felt from what I knew to be true that this was going to be a big thing. I felt this from the beginning. Still now, can't explain why and how, but I just felt it, and I could be wrong, but this is, so. Over the years, I told people, I think, you better look into this. I think this is going to change everything. I think this is the future. And some people listened in the beginning, and these people, they're very happy that they listened. And a lot of people were very cautious, suspicious, because you heard a lot of negative things still now on the news about, criminal activities, money laundering, ransom, this and that. So people were, every time you mentioned it, they were like, if we wouldn't know you any better, we would be very worried about you, And then it must have been early 2017, after, again, when I bought at 66, that was in March 2013, and then it went all the way up to about 1,000, just over 1,000 at the beginning of 2014. And then we entered the bear market, and everybody said, okay, well, we told you, it's a bubble, so it was, people were laughing at me. And then, really people, I think in a way also people were happy that, that they didn't miss out that chance and that I was wrong or something. So in a way that was, they didn't feel comfortable, but, I stayed with what I knew, and I said, look, wait for it. Sometimes you just have to have a long breath, and it's, you just have to be patient. And then it was a very long 2013, and it was a very long 2015. But then things started picking up again. And I remember very well, early on January 1st, 2017, it turned $1,000 again, that all-time high again. And then the same people that I'd been associated with, and friends and family and co-workers and stuff, they came to me and they said, so what do you think? And I think it's going to be going at least 10,000 by the end of the year. And they were laughing again. I said, "Oh, forget it. Come on. Didn't you learn your lesson? It's never going to go there. It's a big bubble and nobody's going to let it go through. Everybody's going to shut it down. Forget it." And then at the end of the year, nobody was laughing anymore. And then when everything crashed after it reached that 20,000, it was kind of weird because people again lost faith in it. They were like, "Oh, we told you it was the bubble. Okay, first time you were lucky, and now it's just forget it." And everybody lost the interest. Like everybody around me, there was, maybe not even a handful of people that still believed in it. So 2018 was a really long year in the crypto space, and during this year, especially in the beginning, I thought, instead of just being, pessimistic about it, I want to do more with this. I want to go out there and, educate people, give workshops. And I also want to go into the whole infrastructure thing. Because I remember in the early 90s, I was born in 76. So in the early 90s, coming out of Eastern Germany, not knowing what the Western culture was, we didn't have a clue. There was no DVD, there was no nothing. And then, and I remember in the early 90s, they were talking about, there were credit cards and all that. And I remember when we had American Express and JCB or something from Japan, but there was no Visa or barely, and no MasterCard. And when they sort of started taking over, I always thought like, oh, I wish I would be part of the system. Wouldn't it be nice to be part of this somewhere, setting something up? And then I remember that in the early 2018s, and then I thought, I want to do something about this. And then one thing led to another, and then all of a sudden I had this big talk in Dubai early 2018, also with Najahi, and then some people contacted me afterwards, and then we started founding a company here, and then all of a sudden everybody was well, not everybody was interested in it, but I really felt this was something that needed to be done, especially during the times when things are quiet. You want to set it up. And then now everything is going crazy, as you know, about crypto.
Yeah, it has gone crazy, hasn't it? Now, you talk about blockchain technology as the third path. What do you mean by that?
I look when I look at what's happening in the world right now, and I don't want to go into any conspiracy or something like that. But I do think that things go really wrong right now, and I've been watching the globe very carefully. I've always been politically and financially interested and reading things, and since I've been to so many countries, I don't only read what's happening in Germany in my language, and not only in the mainstream media but also in alternative media. I always tell people, look, make up your own mind, do your own research. Don't let the media feed you, connect, compare what's happening. And not everything that's said in the mainstream media is wrong, and not everything that's said in the alternative media is right. And start comparing, not only in your country but internationally. And this is what I did. And what I found is, while everybody is, just wanting to have a normal life, have their jobs, have their families, have their income, and just enjoy life, I felt that there are so many problems that have arisen over the years, and especially in the world of the banking and finance, and how the world is been run. And some of the things I don't really like at all. And I thought, I want to change something here. I don't want to take this as a status quo and be happy with how things are going. I forgot the question. Sorry. Can you help me back on the way?
Yeah, well, you talk about blockchain technology being the third path.
Oh yeah. So what I observed over the years is there's always been movements of people going against something. You got people, for the climate change, or something like Occupy Wall Street. And there's always been this whole talk about the 1% of the world's population and then the 99%. It felt like there was a division being created, a division between the fortunate few and all of us, the rest of us, the suffering ones, like, the 1% have so much wealth and everybody else doesn't. And in a way, that's true. I think that's totally true. I don't think it is acceptable that The entire world is living or, you know, a lot of people in many countries all over the world are living in poverty and in war and destruction, while the Western world is still, even though there's no official colonialism anymore, they are still looting the countries through private companies or corporations and stuff like that. So I think there's still kind of a division in there. And while some people are always trying to be this on this side, and some people are always trying to be on that side, and there's a lot of fighting. And then when I look at the division between the income that has grown wider in Germany, in Europe, in the United States, and many other countries, I don't think that's a healthy direction. And when I saw where Bitcoin came from, I really saw and felt something was different here. And while you know, in 2008, there was this German Minister of Finance, Mr. Steinbrück, and he went in front of the cameras with Chancellor Merkel, September 2008, during Lehman Brothers collapse, and he said, "Oh, your savings are safe," and everybody believed it. About 5 years later, he was interviewed about just that, and he was out of office then. And the interviewer asked him, "So remember those days? Like, why did you say that? And would you say that again?" He said, "Well, we didn't have a choice because there was a major bank run on the way in Germany, all over Europe, all over the world. People were actually taking their money out of the banks." And he said, if we wouldn't have tried to calm people down, things would have gotten worse. So this is what they did. In a way, I do understand it. He said, we were never in the position to actually even promise things like that, because there was no backing for any of that. And so when Mr. Steinbrück talked about that, he said one thing that I will always remember. He said, it was a matter of hours back then. And, you know, the interviewer asked him, "Why do you mean that?" He said, "Well, if we wouldn't have gotten together, like all the Minister of Finance or whoever got together from G20 countries and if we wouldn't have gotten together and agreed that we needed to provide liquidity to the freezing markets, everything would have died within hours, really." So they flooded the central banks flooded the markets with hundreds of trillions of US dollars, you know, and only because of that, the financial system back then was held to be alive. And it's still dangling by a thread, and things have gotten much worse in 2008. But coming back to that thing, I believe, and this is not what I'm saying, but people know, is the reason why we came to that abyss with the whole financial system is because of what's been happening in the financial system for the last decades. A systematic fraud, systematic manipulations, and people, nobody knows about this. You know, the big banks around the world, we're talking about dozens and hundreds of them, have been manipulating and rigging every single market there is. And nobody knows about it. The financial authorities, they find them. They say, "Okay, sorry, you did this, and now you have to pay a fine." They pay the fine, and they do it again, and do it again, and do it again. So I felt like there's been a major manipulation going on, and it's just continuously. And when like a little person in Dubai or in Germany is doing something illegal with whatever tax evasion or money laundering, they have to go to prison, or even worse, you know. So well, not whatever, but when I talked about the third path, it's like they were massively trying to hold things together and really trying to keep the grid on how everything is going, and still now up to this day. And who is the one who has to work this all out? Who has to pay for this? Is this the majority? It's us. And so when I said I feel Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, blockchain is the third way, it's almost like while one party is trying to hold things into place and the other party is you know, trying to fight it, it's like these two oppositions and this separation just really knocking on each other. It's like crypto does what it does, and it comes through it's the third way, comes through the back door and just erases everything. And it's like the bankers and the big banks, like I remember 3-4 years ago, they were really fighting it and really bad-mouthing it and were completely against it, and now they're jumping on the bandwagon because they know if they don't react and if they don't, you know, take the opportunity, they will be gone, you know. And so I really felt that Bitcoin, cryptocurrency is the third path that will eventually change a lot of things in the financial system. Who knows if it's actually going to succeed? But I really do think that something is happening. And from the speed how things are accelerating right now, I think there's a good chance.
When you look at the amount of money that's being printed in the Eurozone and the United States, we blame that printing of money on inflationary issues that exist right now, and we see inflation having an impact on people's spending power of their money, and the banks not offering any real interest on savings. Traditionally, some nationalities lean into gold as a store of value, as the place to put their money if it can't be in the bank, as a safe kind of place. But nowadays, more and more, the crypto experts are saying, look, Bitcoin is a store of value, and it's a better store of value than gold. Do you agree with that? And if you do, why?
I agree with that partially. I think crypto is way too young to determine how it's actually going to react in a kind of recession or currency reset or something. I do agree with the fact that a lot of banks, even central banks, like I think recently the Central Bank of Singapore said that crypto is the new store of of value for the future and might replace gold. But gold has been around for thousands of years. So. We have a saying in German, the dead live longer, the ones that are supposed to be dying or supposed to be dead are living longer. So let's see. I don't know. I think there's a possibility that both can coexist at the same time, like gold and precious metals. However, the good thing about, Bitcoin or cryptocurrency is that if you want to buy a ton of gold and it's sitting in a warehouse and in Brinks and in Switzerland, you don't have to send a truck with security and armor to get it from there, to send it somewhere else. You just have to, have a crypto wallet, and then within a flash of a second, it's there on the other side of the world where it's where it needs to be.
A lot of people invest money and have invested money over the years without really understanding what they're investing in. I've been in financial services for 30 years, and most people aren't that interested in where the money goes. What they're actually interested in is the result, the outcome. And a little bit like, I don't know, if we go buy a steak in a restaurant, do we need to know what the cow's name was? Do we care what it was fed? Do we care how it died? And do we care where it lived? Invariably, we don't. We just want to know that it tastes good on the plate. And over the years, whether it be mutual funds, equities, bonds, other types of investment instruments, as much as people would ask sensible questions, the simple fact is, so I gave you £1,000 and you're going to give me £1,100 back. Is that right? And that's the kind of depth that a lot of people have gone to. Yet when crypto came out, and as it's blown up over the course of the last 24 months, what we've seen is people having strong opinions towards various coins, whether that be the big ones, the Bitcoins and Ethers and whatnot, or whether it be the smaller ones, the Shibus. People say, it's not real, it's fake, it can't be real, what's it based upon? What do you make of people that say that? And do you think that those types of people should stay well away from cryptocurrencies, and only the people that think it's an opportunity get involved?
There are over 12,000, 13,000 cryptocurrencies out there. And yes, I think there's a lot of nonsense out there. I think there are a lot of IT coins out there. And some of them are actually scams to get people into invest something. They pump it up and they take the money out and people are left with nothing. So I think from these thousands and thousands and thousands, but there are also some brilliant, amazing projects, and not only cryptocurrencies or tokens that are used just for the purpose of paying with things. There are companies behind that. And I do realize in the crypto space, I always thought, in the beginning, I thought, okay, this is, we're one big community, everybody loves each other. And, unfortunately, I had to wake up from that there is a lot of division in there, a lot of hatred also, And when I give my talks or workshops, I always tell people, look, if you become a maximalist of this coin or that coin, you are putting yourself into, you're limiting yourself, and if, I love Bitcoin. I bought Bitcoin very early, I really like it now. But however, I wouldn't dismiss other cryptocurrencies. And I always tell people, look, the next time you're talking about an SHIT coin, about a project, well, we're not talking about the scams. Let's leave the scams out. I do believe there are thousands of scams, so we're not talking about the scams. Let's talk about the projects. There are people in offices. They're working for real money. They have families. They have to feed their families. They're doing an honest job. They have a good technology. They believe in something. They're working very hard for it. They're competing with many others. And I believe no matter whether they are successful or not, I think we all need to honor each other for who we are and what job we do. So yes, would I buy a coin that, in my opinion, doesn't necessarily look so good with the development process? Maybe not, but that doesn't mean that everything is just really bad. It's not, and I think we need to, I think there needs to be a little more respect towards each other, no matter, what coin we invested in. We're all crypto people, at the end of the day, let's focus on what we have in common and not what really separates us,
What kind of things do people say to you when you are on your workshops that are cynical or negative or suspicious about the whole crypto world? What kind of things do they say to you when you're teaching?
I have this slide in my presentation that I in my talk that I have, and I always want to hear from people. Okay, what is it? In the beginning, I start, okay, what is it, all the horror stories that you heard about crypto that you're worried about, and then I have people, telling them, I write it down in the flip chart so we can have it, to get into interaction. And of course, people are always worried. It's a scam, and there are too many scammers in there. Central banks will, ban it, and you can there's security risks. You can lose your coins. Exchanges can shut down and things like that. So people are very suspicious. People are mostly, and this is not only the people that are talking in the workshops about this, but also, I think one of the biggest problems is what people read in the media, and whether it's on in German media, in European media, in whether it's some lifestyle magazines or whether it's some really serious, the London Times stuff. Many times you read, for the last years, you've been reading about crypto scams. You're reading about somebody was, doing money laundering. Somebody was doing some, ransom for some kidnapping. And even now, this whole crypto thing has gotten so mysterious. It's gone into Hollywood, and then you on Netflix, and you read, okay, so, the Queen of the South is all of a sudden dealing with Monero, and it's like, it doesn't give it a good taste, and people always like, crypto. Well, when I talk to people, not only in the workshops, but in my normal life, people are like, oh, I've heard about all these things, and money laundering, that's not so good and all this. But then I always specifically ask people, and in the workshops, to put this down, and I want to debunk that. And one of the things that I'd like to debunk with you now is that when it comes, for example, to money laundering, right? When people talk about crypto being used for money laundering, yes, that's correct. That's happening every day. However, if you zoom out there and you actually read the official statistics, not by some third world party, something, but by the World Bank or the IMF or the whatever, 80% of global money laundering is done by the banks, period. And not just some banks in Africa or banks in South America, like, oh, some shady country. No, that's not correct. It's our HSBCs. It's our Deutsche Banks. It's our JP Morgans. It's our BBVAs and whatever they are. The top banks in the world. And this is part of that whole scam thing. So people, and sometimes I'm wondering, why is nobody talking about that? It's because it's not in the interest of people talking about that, because then they would have to look at their own thing. Like, why are these banks still in place? Why have they not been restricted? Why just giving them a few million fines instead of why don't you just shut them down? Because it's still such a powerful sector. So 80% of the global money laundering is done by the banks. From the remaining 20, only very small fraction is actually done with cryptocurrency. And there was a study that just came out a few weeks ago in the United States that from all crypto transactions globally in 2020, only 0.3 of them were done, illegal activities were done with that. 0.3% for millions of transactions. And that's also accounting for 99.7% of all crypto transactions are legitimate. They're legitimate. So I always tell people, look, please, next time your friends, your family, your neighbor, your coworker comes to you and tells you that, please tell them that, please put it in the right perspective here,
Yeah, that makes a very good point. I really do believe that. People have said to me over the years, oh, there's some really bad people in your industry or whatever the industry was. And I'm like, there's really bad people in every industry. The majority of them are good, but in every industry, whether that's lawyers, pharmaceutical companies, whether that's banks, there's bad people everywhere. It just means that you have to pay attention and learn a bit more than you would normally so that you can understand a bit more and not be taken along for the ride for the ones that do scam. But remember, they're few and far between. I hear people talk about, I have my credit card cloned. I hear people say that. I've never had my credit card cloned, touch wood. Have you ever had it? It's never happened to me.
No.
But it's like, when one person does it and they find somebody else that might have been on the same journey as them, all of a sudden it's like it gathers a head of steam, and I spoke to him and I spoke to him, and before you know it, a whole community knows someone that had their credit card cloned. It's just, I know it takes place, but it's just not a common occurrence. If I was to sit on one of your webinars or seminars and learn what you do, what would you be teaching me at one of those events?
In the initial talks that I do, I want to give people an overview of not only about Bitcoin cryptocurrencies. I always talk about who's adopting them, and because there's only 1%, like roughly 1% of the world's population are in crypto at the moment, and a big majority of the others, they kind of looking at it like, oh, maybe, and then there are still a big majority that are like, no, never in the world, and because of all the reasons that we talked about, the whole negative image about it. And so I'm trying to give people the idea, look, if you want to invest into something, you need to know about it. And you need to not just know about it today, but, you need to stay on it, stay on what's happening with all these different projects. And so I give people the overview of, what Bitcoin cryptocurrency are, how they're being adopted right now. And I've been basically quoting things from the last 9 years or something that I've been writing down, from the big, from the retailers to the banks, from the, private investors to insurance companies, the countries, the cities, and all of that. I always also talk about the blockchain technology, because I do believe not only Bitcoin or cryptocurrency is one of the biggest wealth transfers that has ever happened. And because of that, it presents a very great opportunity for people, in my opinion. Maybe one of the biggest that we've ever seen here, ever. But also, number two, I also believe that the blockchain technology, which is right now being adopted in over 50, 60, 70 industries around the world, really does have the potential to really change something. And I'm not saying it in a like, oh, let's change the world and we live in happy ever after. Technology does change the world and has the potential to really erase a lot of, especially manipulation and fraud and corruption. And this is where the blockchain technology, in my opinion, is just going to do some really cool stuff. And so I always love talking about that. And then when people always ask me, and like, why do you think our cryptocurrency is so hot at the moment? And I said, of course, it's it's trendy, it's NFTs, like, ooh, Paris Hilton and, The Weeknd and Snoop Doggy Dogg. And what is an NFT? Oh, cryptocurrency is very cool. You can make a lot of money. You're going to be rich tomorrow. It's fast, it's cheap, and all of that. That's one aspect. But what I always tell people, and it starts with that actually quite lengthily, it's the reason why this is happening, and not only because it's so trendy, but it's because what's been happening in the world of business and finance around the world. We are, as you know, you've been there. We are living in a world of zero or negative interest rates. Does it get better? No, it doesn't. So we live in a world of an accelerating In inflation, 4% in Germany, that hasn't been in there in 30 years. United States, 5%. Argentina, 51%. It's a G20 country, by the way. People are freaking out in Argentina. They're trying to get their money out of the country. It's not possible. And so inflation is a big part. And one thing is always like, some things are so normal to us that we don't even think about it. For example, like I got my first bank account with Deutsche Bank in, I think it must have been September 1992, right? And ever since I started this, I've always paid banking fees. And we never questioned it. We get annoyed about it, like, oh, So I've just come from a big trip around the world, and I just looked at my credit card thing, and I was like, oh my God, and this is Deutsche Bank credit card. I'm like, oh my God, I have to pay fee here, pay fee here, fees everywhere. We're paying dozens of fees. We're not even aware of it or not, and it's just normal. Nobody questions this because we didn't have a choice. And then the thing that I told you about, the whole manipulation in the banking world, it's a systematic fraud away from, around the, authorities, around the rules and regulations. And who has to pay this? Us. And then the excessive global money printing, which has been like crazy in the last year itself because of COVID and everything. So you got all these factors in the world, and people are really worried about their money. People are, globally, and of course there are differences in different countries and all of this, we know this. But basically people are going to work every day. They're earning their money. They're paying their taxes, more or less in more places. And then they're taking it to the bank. They don't get any interest for it. In Germany, there are over 400 banks already charging negative interest rates. So they actually have to pay for keeping their money there. At the same time, the inflation is eating away 5%, 4%, 6%, 9% in Russia. And then while the banks are taking the money and doing the rodeo Wild Wild West and actually making money with your money, and at the end of the day, you are the one who's screwed. And I think people are really waking up from that. And I hope it's not only the institutions that are drawing their money out of everything that is written on paper. I really hope that the people are actually doing this. And one of the reasons why I get so enthusiastic about talking about crypto and blockchain is, there are a lot of the whole wealth distribution on the planet, in my opinion, is completely wrong. And when you look at the richer European countries, Germany, France, Spain, Portugal, and all of this, the Netherlands, the UK had been colonizing the world for hundreds of years, and they've been looting the rest of the world, South America, Africa, Asia, for hundreds of years. We're talking about thousands of trillions, and that's why there are so many beautiful palaces in Barcelona and in Madrid and in Lisbon and everything. But what's happening with crypto now is it's almost like it's like a clean white canvas, and everybody, even the smaller nations, they have a chance now to really do something. And all it takes is a person that is a visionary to seize the opportunity, and a doer at the same time, like the guy from El Salvador, for example. Yeah, I mean, he announced that he was going to get into crypto, into Bitcoin as a legal tender in May at a conference in Florida, and they started, I think, on, was it September 7th or something? So within 4 weeks, about 3 million people were owning Bitcoin. So all of a sudden, all major food chains, airlines, everybody is accepting cryptocurrency. And what does this do to the country? It was like a huge uproar all around the world. People all of a sudden realizing, let's go and invest there. Let's set up crypto ATMs. Let's invest in businesses, buy properties and all of this. So a huge flood of money is going into the country now, creating business, creating revenue, creating income, profits, and generating GDP. So when I see the example of that, the other day I was interviewed on a television in Nigeria, and the interviewer was asking me, so what if you had the chance, if you could talk to our central banks, what would you tell them? And I said, well, I would say give it a frame, give it a rule and regulations. We're not talking about wild, wild west, everybody does crazy and all this. No, give it a framework, but don't suffocate it. don't, don't throw it down the bus. Give it a framework and let it flourish. And then you will see. And you have pockets around the world where this has been very successful, like Malta, for example. Malta was in the European Union. It was sort of like not doing really well for many, many years. And all of a sudden the president said, okay, let's get into, let's make our economy accessible for blockchain, not only crypto, but blockchain companies around the world. And this is what they did. And they came. And they created work, they created revenue, GDP, and this has been a very good example. So I think it's a good point for other countries to follow suit, and not only the big ones.
You have to consider though. I don't know whether it's Nigeria, Zimbabwe, or many countries in the developing part of the world. They have very weak currencies, don't they? And so when you saw Zimbabwe go from, the Zim dollar down now to pretty much only the US dollars used there, Bitcoin is ideally placed to take over that currency in a country like that. I've heard Nigeria is going to adopt it as well. There's probably 50 countries that could do a lot better having it. I mean, Venezuela is another example. Hyperinflation problems exist there. So I agree. The average man on the street is just trying to get his head around Bitcoin. The average man on his street is just trying to understand how a crypto miner can get paid for mining crypto. They're just trying to get their head around it, let alone all of the other coins. And I think maybe it shouldn't be called cryptocurrency because I don't think it is currency. I think it should be called something else, as probably you'll agree. But then they're now hearing about NFTs being bandied about, and the I know that word, token, I know that word. What on earth does fungible mean, in the NFT? What is a fungible of anything? So people are busy trying to work out what on earth's there. Then they're now saying, oh, Facebook are about to invest X squillion billion dollars into the metaverse. And now you can buy property in the metaverse. You can dress your avatar in the metaverse because that's the future. We've always seen technology move at a pace, but it seems to me that technology is moving so quickly now that the average man on the street is always going to be challenged to keep up with what's going on. How would you advise the average man on the street to go about learning at a pace that is palatable and not becoming, because I think that one of the problems is it's intimidating when you don't know much about so much and yet there's more. So what advice would you give?
I completely agree. I think the most important thing is education. A lot of people are starting by themselves. There are no courses, there are no universities, there are no anything about it. And I also completely agree with you. The wording in this space is so new that sometimes I have a workshop with 30, 40 people from 30 different countries, and then you talk about a two-factor authentication, or you talk about something like what is a private key, or all these names. People are like, oh my God, I've never heard about it, and it's very hard for them, and it's almost like. I always use the example. Do you remember in the late 90s when you first opened up your computer, like the first computer you had? Do you remember when you opened that up? Yeah, because I remember very well. I came back from I was living in LA, in Los Angeles, California. I went to Best Buys, took all my money I had, got this really thick Toshiba computer, and then. Got this little modem, people don't know what a modem is these days, and it was like ding, 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 and then it was opening up. So all I saw on the screen was all this advertisement of Yahoo and AOL and all of that, and I didn't have any clue what I was doing. And I was trying to be smart and thinking like, okay, what would other people now do? What are they doing? What are they thinking? Are they more advanced than you? Are they cleverer than you? I had no idea. And this is how I felt when I first did my first Bitcoin crypto buying. I was like, oh man, don't tell anybody what you're doing there, because I'm just happy that this works. You're sending your money somewhere and you never know whether it actually gets there. So what I would tell people is really try to educate yourself. I'm not, trying to promote my workshops here because I already have enough work anyway. But what I would say is try to find somebody that you trust, where you can learn, and what I teach people is the beginning, before we even start with cryptocurrency, buying and all of this, I always tell them, look, number one thing is security, security, security. And people are like, why security? Because in 2020 alone, there were over 400,000 crypto scams. It's such a new technology. People don't have a clue, and they're making so many mistakes. They are downloading their wallets. They don't know which wallets they're downloading. They don't write down their 12 words, or they write them down and they miss them, and then they forget their passwords. They get never into their wallets again. I'm getting phone calls and emails from like almost every day from people all over the world asking me like, okay, I did this and that. Well, how do I get back into my wallet? I said, well, do you have this and that? And I said, no. Well, is there somebody else who has this information? No. Well, then I'm sorry, but you will never see your money again. I have friends in Czech Republic. They asked me, oh, can we, which coin would you recommend? And I said, well, I got this. It's doing really well. If you want to get something, you can buy it here and there. But make sure when you get the wallet, write down the 12 words, write down their password, save it somewhere securely. About a year later, the few thousand euros they invested went up to over 500,000 or something. And they contacted me. He said, okay, so how do we get back in our wallet? I said, well, you just have to take your password. And then they said, well, we can't find the password. I said, okay, well, that's not so good. But if you have your mnemonic phrase, the recovery phrase, it's no problem. You just download the wallet somewhere else and you get into your wallet. And they said, well, we don't have it. And I said, well, must have. Did you write it down, or did you do a screenshot, which I told you not to do? But did you write it down somewhere? And they said, yeah, but we have to look for it. So they were looking for it and looking for it, and they couldn't find it. So they can see exactly on the blockchain how much money they have in there, but they will never see it again. And this is what I teach people. I said I teach people how to make themselves invisible, how to secure their computer. Number one, people are not using VPNs. People are using crappy browsers where they're being tracked, and then they're all of a sudden receiving advertisements and emails and phone calls from spammers because of what they do on the internet. So I tell people to become invisible and invincible, become a private bank, because you are a bank. You can't just call up your bank and say, look, I made this, I made a big mistakes. I sent it somewhere. Can you get it back for me? It's not working, as you know. It doesn't work. So people have to take on their own responsibility, step-by-step learning. Be very careful what you do, and especially don't fall for the scammers. I'm amazed how many scams and how many thousands and thousands of scammers out there that are trying every possible way, that are trying to, push every possible emotional, mental button in people to get them to release their cryptos. And people doing this every day, millions are losing their money. It's insane. So I would tell people, make sure that you are safe with your computer and everything first, and then go step by step. And don't listen to what other people say. Do your own research. Don't listen to what your friends, your neighbors said. Go and get this coin and do this and do that. And I heard this thing and the new ICO, and then people put their money in and then they never see it again. As I always say, do your own research. If you don't know what to do, ask somebody for help. And then at the end of the day, do your analysis, your technical analysis, and then and you read everything about it, and then make a conscious decision. Connect your head and your heart and your stomach and say, okay, now I'm buying this coin. I've read everything about it. I know everything about it. I have a really good feeling about it. And I'm staying in touch with the project on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, with the official accounts and not the fakey ones. And then so I know what's happening there. And then I see what's happening.
Okay, good. A couple of last questions for you. Number one, let's say they've understood it, they get an understanding of the blockchain, they now understand more about crypto, and so they're keen to get started. First of all, how much money should people invest? Is it large amounts they should invest in the beginning? And secondly, should crypto be an asset class people trade or hold for the long term and not worry about it? Put however much money into it and just leave it for 10 years and look at it then. What do you think?
I think what I do is I've been a hodler for the last 8-9 years. And now I've hodled enough. I'm kind of thinking I need to sell something. So I'm planning on selling some of my crypto at the end of this bull market, whenever that's going to be. However, the next thing is like, but where am I going to put it? In the bank and then have the value of the money, go down every month? No, I don't want to do that. So we got to be thinking about what we're going to do with this. So my strategy has always been holding, buying more when the project is good, mining and staking and DeFi, and basically creating this massive, passive, secure way of increasing your wealth, not in the short period of time, but in the longer term. There are very successful traders out there. However, 90% of all traders are losing money every single day. And it's not hodling is not only a very good strategy to keep your heart in a good, healthy place, but also you can actually enjoy life, And I think that if you are trading, do day trading and everything, I always tell people, go to a real good workshop, learn it, and then have a demo account, and then be very, very careful. Don't get greedy. And then you have to think about, okay, do you want to be, rich quick and just take a major risk? But that risk could also lead to the fact that you lose a lot of money. So I don't follow that strategy without saying it's good or bad. It's not my thing. I really go with a long term, and that has served me really well. And this is what I also teach people, but also giving people the space to decide for themselves. I think that's important.
Okay, good. And currently we're seeing the price of Bitcoin, Ethereum, etc. doing really well. We're in the middle or in a bull run at the moment. There is speculation and talk about it going to 120,000, some saying even higher than that, and this is Bitcoin. What do you, if you were to give your professional opinion, what do you think is going to happen to Bitcoin between now and the end of the year, or now the end of the first quarter of next year? What kind of bear market is likely to follow, or correction is likely to follow in your opinion? So what advice can you give around that?
I've been saying this since the last bull market peaked, and I stand up to that. And of course I could be wrong, and it doesn't matter, because I look at it at the long term. I think that Bitcoin seriously has the potential by the end of the year, beginning of next year, whatever, February, March or something, to be at least 100,000 or even up to 400,000 or longer. I honestly think that there's a great potential in that. If Bitcoin does what it did in the past, then after it reached its all-time high, it went up 20 times. So there's definitely, there's a great possibility that it goes up to 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 per Bitcoin. When I look at the amount of money that is being printed right now, except, maybe one thing before I answer your question, right? At the beginning of World War II, from 1945 to about 2008 to Lehman Brothers, in about a period of 63 years, global debt and creation of money went up to about 55 trillion public debt, more or less, 55 trillion US dollars, right? When Lehman Brothers came, within 12 years, 2008 to 2020, that amount went up to about 277 trillion. So let's say roughly 4.5 times than it was created in 63 years, was created in 10 years. So that alone was a major jump. But then came COVID-19, entire countries were shut down, everybody went out of jobs, economies were shut down, blah, 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 everything. Another 30% of these 277 trillion were added in just 1 year. It's completely gone insane. So with all that money going around there, I wouldn't be surprised that we actually hit that target, 200,000, 300,000, 400,000. But that wouldn't be the end of the road. Right now there's about 1% of the global population in crypto, about roughly 130 million. Interestingly is that the nations of the nations where the people hold most of the cryptocurrencies are in India, United States, and interestingly, in the top 5 or 10, they are some of the leading countries with the highest inflation. So people are consciously or unconsciously pulling their money out of the fiat system that is not really there to begin with, because as we know, there's only like 5 to 10% of money left in all the banks in the world anyway. So people are taking the money from there, put it into crypto, and interestingly, people don't smell, they smell something is coming. So coming back to your question, I think the possibility that the bear market after that, and I'm sure that there will come one, it might not even take 3 years. It might not even be 2 years. It might only be 1 year. I think we're at this point where crypto is really going into mainstream, with all the NFT craziness, with Starbucks accepting it, with AMC Theaters, Dogecoin, and all of this. People are becoming really aware of all that crypto stuff, and they really like it. And the retailers, they love it, because they realize when we start accepting cryptocurrency, we are actually making more money, because people want to spend it, because it's become something cool to do. So I wouldn't be surprised if we would go from this 1% of the global population to 2, 3, 4, 5% very quickly. And when that happens, there might not be a long bear market after all. And I saw this very interesting statistics, this very cool chart the other day, and it actually talked about that there's a possibility that we just went through the bear market between the official bear market between May and September. What if the bear market isn't coming, but we just passed it, and now we're going to fly? I don't know. A lot of crystal balls involved in here. Thousands of traders. You know, in Germany we have a saying when everybody watches a game of the national team, or in soccer, or in the some favorite team, Bayern Munich, whatever. And then we have a saying in Germany, we have 82 million people living in our country, where it would say, oh, we have 82 million trainers, coaches in our countries, because everybody knows it better. And I would say the same for the crypto market. I think everybody always, of course, wants to be right. You know, it's always nice to be right, and nobody likes to be wrong. So I just put it out there that, who knows? I don't know. It could be possible we reach 2, 3, 400,000, and then maybe we even go beyond there, and then maybe have a short break, which might not be as long as we think, and then we carry on, because after every bear market comes a bull market, and the next thing, I think, will be going much wider, and because of all what's happening in the world right now, I wouldn't be surprised if Bitcoin and crypto would be moving much higher. And I've just, maybe just one on the sideline. How crypto can work. I invested about $1,500 in a particular coin in March, right? And 1,500, basically, it was like half about a week later, and I was like, oh, bad decision, not so good, I was like, no, you should have known better. But I made a conscious decision. I said, okay, I'm going to get it. If it goes, it's okay. And then I looked at it about 6 weeks later, and it had gone up to over 470,000. I was like, I almost fell off my chair. I was like, oh my God, this is freaking me out. And it's gone up to just that one particular coin has gone up to almost 1 million now, So there's a lot of possibility in the crypto space. But what I always say, do your own research. Be very careful what you do. Set up your security and everything, and do your diligent work. Don't to listen what other people say, and don't get greedy, and slowly but surely, and then do this. So, yeah,
makes sense.
Everything is possible.
Fantastic, Sebastian. It's been great talking to someone with as much knowledge as you on the show this evening. You've answered a lot of questions I think lots of people have around the crypto markets. You're going to be running a course here fairly soon. Is it taking place fairly soon, where people can come and learn from you?
I do different kind of courses. Although the whole setting up crypto infrastructures is now really accelerating, so I'm taking a pause. I have the last beginners class online is this Saturday, but I do on an underground mastermind in Dubai on the weekend of 3 days. What is it? November 26th to 28th or something. So okay. Beginners class, the last one will be in a few days, and then the other one will be down on the ground in Dubai.
Okay, excellent stuff. We'll make sure that people get the dates for that. Sebastian Huth, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for coming to join us on the show.
Thank you so much for letting me on here and letting me talk, and I'm honored. Thank you. And thanks everybody for listening.
So let's have a think about this for a second. when you're listening to a crypto expert talking about it, think about how cautious he is being as he talks about it. Get educated, learn more about it. Don't just jump in. Understand that there are risks involved. Understand there's volatility involved. Don't listen to the negative naysayers. There's a lot of people out there that will be talking negative about crypto that have never even bought or invested in it themselves. So it's really important to understand that. As always, I try and bring people to this episodes of this show that can teach you so that you can understand, really understand in detail what goes on in the world of crypto. So make sure you follow Sebastian. If you want to learn from him, then make sure that you go and register for his courses. You'll get some benefit from there. I mean, the education's there for him to offer. So please take him up on that offer. It will be valuable to you. And even if you're not ready to invest right now, get yourself armed with the knowledge and you can take advantage of that. For this episode, we'll call it a day. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll see you on the next episode of the Spencer Lodge podcast.